Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Nora Farhat. 8 years ago, after a successful career as a corporate executive, Nora decided to pursue her lifelong dream of owning her own business. Today, she's built that business into a multi-brand, multi-million dollar enterprise. Her brands include British Swim Schools, Mathnasium, Pool Scouts, Grand Illuminations, Code Learning, and Real Property Management. Nora is also the host of Upside Down Entrepreneurship, a show that she is sharing her knowledge, stories, and helpful shortcuts. Nora understands the challenges of starting your own business, and she's passionate about helping aspiring entrepreneurs achieve their goals. Nora, we're so glad you could make some time for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm an avid listener of the show, so I'm very excited to be here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nora, you have accomplished so much. But before we get into, all about your businesses, I really want to take this back a little bit more so to the beginning to find out about you. You seem to have lived in so many different places. You've experienced different cultures in a way that most of us have not. How do you think that impacted you? What have you learned from all of that? From those early years?
I mean, so many wonderful things. My dad was working internationally, so we were constantly traveling. I had gone to 11 different schools before I was even in middle school. That was part of the norm, where for me, having to start over was almost exciting. I know we talk a lot about change and people not liking change. I would be excited. Now, maybe because I didn't finish an assignment and I thought I'd get to start over, but it was almost a way for me to keep recreating myself, starting over. So I got very comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I think is something so important when we talk about entrepreneurship and business. And I had a chance to see so many different versions of what success looks like. Success could be the person, my father didn't even finish school. I don't think he got past third grade, but he was a very successful entrepreneur. The guy down the street was a doctor, had gone to medical school. He was successful. But the guy who also owned his own fruit stand and had 15 of them across the city was also successful. So there's something so beautiful of seeing success look so different in so many different ways. It didn't look one way for me.
Wow, I love this story. So not only did you get this experience of reinventing yourself, starting fresh, learning different things, but you also, from culture to culture, learned that success could look different for one person versus another a person. So tell us about this whole idea of when you finally came to the US. Was there any kind of cultural shock? Was there anything that you learned once you got to the US that has been helpful as you continue to travel abroad or work in different businesses?
Something that I didn't recognize I had as such a strength until I was a little bit older was the fact that I was very confident compared to the kids around me. And it wasn't because I had some kind of level of arrogance or because my parents were reading me all the right books. It was because, like I always said, success looks different, but so do our appearances and our looks. And but then I came to the US and I noticed that a lot of people were being very hard on themselves, or this idea of looking a specific way. Well, I didn't look like them anyway, so it didn't affect me. So I didn't have that standard, but that was my strength. And I didn't recognize it. Even if somebody was like, well, are you too heavy? Okay, that's my body build. It wasn't enough to kind of bring me down. But then I would watch people time and time again. And it's kind of what I call like the perfectionist thing that we see, how people drive themselves crazy. It's, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough. And they're the only ones driving themselves into the ground or demotivating themselves. So for me, that is probably the number one killer I have seen of dreams, hopes, business, is how people are so hard on themselves. I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I didn't need to be. And I was completely okay with that because I also knew where my strengths were. And now as an adult, I also know you can hire the smartest person in the room. But I didn't have that pressure, that perfectionism. I was speaking 3, 4 different languages. So I wasn't very strong at, let's say, at English. Well, I was like, well, I speak other languages, so I'm okay. So definitely that confidence that I didn't recognize I had until I was a little bit older, I realized was probably a little bit the most different for me because I was not raised in the culture, and I wasn't hard on myself the way I see so many people, especially women, and I'm going to speak from that perspective, just being so hard on themselves. Or if it's not perfect, it's not good enough. I have 3 daughters. The one message I repeat more than any message in my house is, it will never be perfect. That's not even the standard.
Wow. That's like done is better than perfect.
100%. Just start, take a step. 80% is good enough.
Yeah, just take action, just move forward. I'm amazed. First of all, I'm always amazed with this topic of reinvention. I even wrote a book on this subject. It just amazes me how an individual is able to recreate themselves or tap into different skills, or maybe go through one point in their life, but then want to pivot, and maybe they don't like the direction that they were going in, and they want to turn and face a new direction, create new opportunities and possibilities for themselves. So it really is fascinating to me that you actually took something that children might be so fearful about or have anxiety about, being in 11 schools before, the age of, what was it?
Before middle school. So like around
Before
6,
middle school, 11 schools. But that's something that would give certain children anxiety, but instead you took hold of it and you created the opportunity. Everything was a new possibility for you. I wonder how that translates to the work you do as an adult.
I've always believed myself, and it's not that I believe in luck, but I've always believed I was lucky, and I was always very positive in that regard. I don't know if this is born with, I don't know if it's something that's learned, but I definitely have to say, if there's a raffle and I didn't win, even as a young child, I'd be like, is there a mistake? Did you mean to call my name? Like, there was almost a natural confidence, not to say we don't all have our moments, but I really love the idea of being lucky or feeling lucky. I don't think it's because I am. I think it's because of how I choose to see the world or the environment around me. And I think that type of optimism or that type of positive energy out there, I think has always just served me really well. I'll walk into a room, I really don't see the negative. It's not that it's not there, or can I pick it apart? Absolutely, anybody can. And the more and more, especially as I'm trying to raise my daughters, is I'm trying to figure out, how do I pass these traits on? Because I want them to understand that, see, for me, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. And Oprah said that best. It's stuck with me ever since. So it's not luck, it's preparation. But once I'm prepared, I will be lucky enough to achieve it. And that I love. That is the right mixture of positive energy and a lot of hard work. I will be the first to tell anybody, there's been a lot of hard work. It was easier to be in a corporate environment than to run my own business. That's the hardest work I've ever done.
So funny. I've only had one job. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I loved that one job. I was respected, paid more than I think I was worth, appreciated. And I certainly didn't work as hard as what I have as an entrepreneur. So it is kind of funny. It's interesting, as you were talking, Nora, and you were talking about having this mindset or this belief, it's actually a belief almost, that you are lucky. And I tried it on just for that 30 seconds you were talking, and all of a sudden the whole room got brighter. Right. And I'm thinking, what if I took that on when I went to meetings, or I went out to dinner with friends, or I went someplace? What would happen? What would I actually attract? Right. And what decisions would I make that are different, where I might have a more pessimistic or a shoot, everything comes hard to me attitude. Yes, I can have it, but oh, it's laborious and it's whatever, difficult. I mean, just that filter of I'm kind of lucky, and I can do pretty much anything. Attitude has taken you far. I mean, far, Nora. So these many cultural experiences, living abroad, coming here, this attitude that you have, how now is that translating as a multi-brand, multi-unit franchisee? I guess I should ask, did you know you were going to be a franchisee? At what point did we sort of wake up to that moment that, I'm kind of tired of corporate, I think I'll become a franchisee? I mean, was that how it was?
It's interesting because the way I actually became a franchise owner, my very first business was a franchise, was because it was at that time I was working overseas at a great job. And at that point, I was looking to transition back to the US. And I thought it's now or never. I always wanted to be a business person. I always wanted to run my own thing. And honestly, I wanted to challenge myself enough to do it. And I thought I could either go from one job to the next. So I could go back to the US, I could look for a job, here's my resume, or I can kind of jump in, both feet in, and worst comes to worst, I'll find a job in between. That was the game plan. I started in franchising because I've always said I'm not the creative, I'm not the idea, I'm not the inventor, but I'm a hell of an operator. I can roll up my sleeves, I work hard, I don't doubt myself when it comes to how hard and how I'm willing to learn on the job. I'm willing to learn as I go. And something about growing up the way I did, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. So walking into a room and everybody seems smarter than me, you're not going to get away with it because I'm going to outwork you and I'm going to figure it out. And I'm the queen of take notes and Google later, figure it out later. We're going to get there. And because of that, I recognize that franchising offers this wonderful opportunity where there's these proven concepts. It's so many different industries, so many opportunities. And I thought, as a wife and a parent and financial responsibilities, I said, this is probably for me what seemed the safest route. I wasn't looking to put all my eggs in one basket. And I definitely had, a set budget and I didn't want to overextend myself. And franchising offers that. It's kind of like, what bucket? How much are you willing to spend? How much time are you willing? What are you interested in? And then the world of opportunities kind of became open to me. And with the franchising model, I really felt that I would have at least the back support and also knowing my skill sets. I wasn't a great marketer, but a franchise comes with a great team of marketing and people who've proven it out. So all of those areas were such advantages and positives for me. And British Swim School was my first franchise, and it was my kids needed swim lessons. Next franchise, my kids needed a math program, and there was none available in my area. Every business had its own story for me. And I actually love the franchising model. I think everybody's different. I think it works for some and not for others. But for me, the franchising world was exactly what an operator like me needs. And it works well.
That's incredible. So interesting.
It is. The thing that hit me out of this is your decision was not made out of a passion. I love swimming. I love math. Your decision was made based on my children need this. My community probably also needs it. And that's kind of how, plus the business model and all of those things. Can you speak that a little bit, kind of passion versus need idea?
Yeah, 100%. I always say when people say, follow your passion, I always thought it was a bit generic and I didn't know what my passion was, but then I realized passion is also a mixture of what are your skill sets, right? What are you kind of naturally drawn towards? It didn't have to be, I'm passionate about teaching. That's not true. So in case anybody's wondering, but it was about what am I really good at? You know what? I love relationships. I love talking to people. Building a business is a lot of relationship building. Building a business is employees and staff and customers and probably more than I knew it would be, but I actually enjoyed that level of work. I'm very detail oriented. I love organization. Those are my skill sets that I can incorporate to any business that I do. And
Yeah.
I love the rolling up your sleeves and kind of learning something from start to finish. Again, that's what I'm really good at. So to me, that translates into a business I'm passionate about, not necessarily the swim lessons. I know how to swim, but and that's kind of what drives me a little bit with any job. I always say, take what skills you're really good at and incorporate them to anything that you're doing. I could, and I always said, whether I'm a stay-at-home mom or a business owner or running into a corporate office, the exact same skill sets would serve me well. When I'm at home, I'm going to be the CEO of my house. When I'm at work, I'm the CEO. If it was a corporate job, I was running my department like I was the CEO of that department. It's the same skill sets that I was using across any industry that I was going to. So for me, passion was mainly about knowing what I'm good at and just not necessarily what do I enjoy doing. It really was driven by when you're good at something, you gain the confidence and you're more excited to do it. And I always kind of tell people, is LeBron James passionate about basketball, or was he just so good and he got positive reinforcement that he became great at what he does? There's such a pull, push and pull for me a little bit on that word passion sometimes.
Yeah,
Tracy,
you're
this,
definitely
this
speaking
sounds
my
like you,
language.
Tracy. It sounds
Yeah.
like you.
I was just thinking she's speaking my language
She is.
100%. I mean, I really truly believe that everybody has their own innate skill sets. But of course, then when you start to work in them and you see how, certain opportunities open up, or you're working joyously because you're working in your skill set. So my question for you would be, you seem to have found your skill set early. What would you say to the people who don't necessarily know what their skill set is?
I would say that though it seems I did find my skill set early, I didn't know they were my skills till I was much older. And I always say, when I was a little talking child, talk, and I kept being told, no, kids don't talk, you can't ask questions, you're supposed to be a little bit quiet. But then in my household, my little youngest, who turned out to be just like me, is encouraged. It's like, yes, tell me the story, tell us more. So though those were my skill sets, I didn't recognize them as skills necessarily. I think that you have to be very good at self-reflecting. And actually, believe it or not, I think this is a strength of most women. We like to take it all on. But I think part of taking it all on is use that same skill set you would use to, let's call it, fix somebody else or give advice to somebody else, and internalize it. Well, what would I want for myself? And I think asking yourself those questions, you have to be aware enough to ask yourself the right questions. Don't let yourself off the hook. One of the biggest issues I see now is people are constantly letting themselves off the hook. It's not me, it's them. I could have, but it's because they said this. Stop. Those are all just excuses. You need to recognize what is my role. You know who controls that energy in my house? It's me, because I'm the one who takes responsibility for it. When you take responsibility for yourself, you're able to see more clearly what you're really good at. Or what strengths do you have? So though now when I tell back the story, it seems like my skills were always there, but I didn't recognize them. I got much older, and it was through a mixture of things, a mixture of myself and feedback from other people. I think that people could be a great resource. It could simply just be looking at your family and say, what do you guys think I'm really good at? It could be, working for somebody, and, when you're doing a job evaluation or they give a little feedback, don't be arrogant enough to say 100% of what they're saying is not true. That's not true. Now, is 100% correct? No, because perspective matters, but take it in. What do you hear a lot of? What are people kind of constantly telling you? And what do you know about yourself? And those could really secretly be how you discover those things,
Yeah.
That's great.
It's like a recipe, right? It's like, have that self-awareness, ask yourself some questions. What am I good at? What do I enjoy? What do I want? All those questions combined with self-responsibility, not a pointing of fingers. And some of that does require some feedback, from people we respect that know us well, to tell us what they see, knowing that they may not see 100%, but that's going to be valuable feedback. I think part of that recipe, and Nora, I don't know if you agree, if you have that self-reflection and you have that self-responsibility, I think another part of that recipe is self-discipline, right? Self-discipline, self-control, those kinds of things. Because if I only know who I am, but I'm not taking action, even in things doing that I don't like doing, right? I think we just know ourselves well at that point, rather than, like you said, taking responsibility, taking action. So what are your thoughts on this whole idea of self-discipline? Is it an important factor as an individual, especially as a business owner?
That word action is my favorite term. If I tell anybody anything, I'm like, take action, just take one step. There is no question. We always think when we see somebody successful, one, it always seems overnight. It never is, right? Or we always think that they just were in the right market at the right time, or, we give all these things. No, you know what I see? I see a lot of hard work. I see hustle. I see discipline. I see somebody that was structured, somebody that was completing tasks. I see somebody who took action day in, day out, small steps. I'm not talking about big leaps. I could not have given you the vision of my business 8 years ago. I was just one business, one step at a time. There is nothing more important than not only recognizing what you want to do, but then also just moving towards it. I always have a moment with any business, and right now I have about 8 different ventures going on. In every business, there's a moment that after I sign everything, I have this moment of, is this the right move? Is this what I want to do? That hesitation. But that doesn't stop me. So I always say to people, all those feelings are normal. Feeling like you're drowning and there's too much to do, and oh my, is this gonna work? Is it not gonna work? That's normal. The difference is if I keep taking small steps towards it. That's the difference between success and failure, is that I just keep moving. And if something falls, let it go, keep moving. It's not enough. I've probably failed 100 times. I wouldn't even tell you where I failed because I don't recognize them as failures. It's an automotive term, lessons learned, lessons learned. We hear that so often, but it's kind of just lessons learned. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try something else. It's that same concept. To me, taking action is 100% the trick to success. It's not even that you've achieved something. It's not a goal. No, it's action. It's small steps every single day towards something. And then without even realizing it, you've made these huge strides.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's the difference between analysis paralysis or using that nervous energy to energize you, right? To help you move forward and take action.
100%. And there's so many times I'll hear people say, when I'm motivated or when I get motivated, and I cringe. And it's because even from my own experience, there's no motivation. It doesn't come. Motivation comes after you've achieved something. Motivation is the result. That energy, that joy that you feel, because that's to me what motivation is, that comes after I have just kicked it and I just did awesome. It's not because I was motivated to go do awesome. It's because I did awesome. Now I feel energized. Now I feel that joy.
Wow.
So to me, it's the reverse. Because honest, if I waited to be motivated, I wouldn't get anything done. I'd be at home every day. I'd be like, do I want to go to the gym? Probably not. Do I really want to finish a long project or take on something that requires so much brain power and hours worth of work? Guess what? No. The easy answer is no. But my discipline tells me yes. My structure, my routine tells me it's time for the gym. It's not a decision I make. It's already part of my routine. I've incorporated it. Everything is so scheduled for me because that routine is important as part of my discipline, as part of what allows me to take those small steps. But if I had to go on my feelings, I don't think I would get anything done. Because my feelings is I'd rather sit here and let's cuddle the kids and let's watch a movie and that'd be perfect. But then am I really setting up the example I want to set up for my kids? Am I building strong foundation for them to know that it takes hard work to be successful? No, those are beautiful moments, but they're not enough. So that short-term emotional, you really are thinking short-term. And motivation to me is that short-term. If you need motivation to move, you've already gotten it backwards. You're literally already standing in your way. It doesn't come until after.
Mic drop, right? Uh,
Right?
Nora, it
Wow.
is. It's a mic drop because I do see some waiting to be inspired or interested, or I don't want to do it because it's not fun, or it's not going to give me instant gratification. It's not going to make me a millionaire overnight. They're waiting on the emotion to drive them. And this idea that it doesn't come until we've taken the actions, the small steps, the self-discipline, which isn't always fun. In fact, most of the time, it's not fun. The motivation comes later as we see results. Now we're getting more and more. It's almost like that motivation ends up being more like inertia. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right? It's not just motivation at that point, it's some kind of inertia that gives us more energy to continue on.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that was a mic drop for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's like an equation, like mindset before action, or mindset, then action, then motivation
Yes,
leads to success.
agreed. That is amazing. Okay, I have a question regarding the juggling of different types of businesses. We got math, we got pool scouts, we got swimming, we got all kinds of businesses. How do you juggle all of that? We have a better idea how you decided on it, but how do you juggle it all?
Well, I decided on each business based on a need that I saw was missing. But the real answer is it took me about 3 to 4 years with just one business. I had to figure that out. There
Mhm.
was so many moments where you don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur until you're in that position, until 100% of those decisions are
Mhm.
yours. 100% of the financial, the staffing, the customer response, how people feel about the program, everything was about us. And how do you grow it? How do you do what's best? And all of those things. So I always say it took me 4 years to build that foundation. But once I got it, business 2, 3, 4, those were easy. And I don't mean easy like it wasn't hard work. I meant easy as in the infrastructure was there. The baseline was already established. I had to learn a lot of lessons on the way. I had moments where I would hire somebody, especially even in the people world. I've spent years with teams and having employees, but then to have employees as an entrepreneur when business is personal, and that's something else I always tell people, we say, oh, business is not personal. Oh, yes, it is. My 7 days a week, my hustle, 100-hour work weeks, that is very personal. So it's hard to also not be emotional. An employee called off. That affects me emotionally. Forget the customer experience. Now I'm like, I feel offended. I'm upset. Now your ego's coming into play, right? So there's so many emotions in business. But I always say it's kind of that split up a little bit between you can do it all, but not at the same time. And I think that is the statement I repeat to myself every time I try. Even with the businesses, I had the infrastructure that allowed me to grow. I would not have been able to start like this. I would have never started with 2, 3 businesses at the same time. I built the infrastructure. I can do it all, but not at the same time. And it's the same message I repeat to myself when I'm not able to be home with my family. Sometimes my attention was 100% my family. I had a baby in my arms. Guess what? That phone call had to wait. I had no choice there because I knew what I had to do at that moment was be with, my child. So I think the longer you do it, the more you're able to build. I hate the word balance, but the more you're able to build flexibility into your schedule. So now I built it in a way where I'm able to pick up my kids after school. I built that into my, but I wasn't doing that 8 years ago. I wasn't able to. So I always say to people, you can do it all, but not at the same time, I think is the trick to figuring out the balance. When your kids are super young and they need more of that hands-on attention, guess what? That's where the attention is going to go. When that business is super young, that business needs a lot of hand-holding. And that's where your attention needs to go. So I always say it's just figuring out where do you want to put your energy and don't drown yourself. If I would have taken on more businesses at a different point in time, I would have failed. just
Mhm.
because it would have been impossible for me to figure out how to juggle it all. But now being where I'm at, and once I had the infrastructure and the team and I was able to learn how to delegate, which was something really hard for me to do. And once I kind of learned those lessons and I was able to build, I was like, oh, I think we can take on one more thing, because I was doing what every really good person, if they ever want to grow in their business, has to do. You have to learn to train, to delegate, to build a team that you trust, and keep moving forward. And I think that that was probably the hardest lesson for me to learn, because I'm a micromanager, I think, and I like to do things myself. And
Mhm.
but I had to learn those lessons. But once I learned them, you don't have to reteach them to me. I was able to build the infrastructure that allows me to be a multi-brand business owner, that allows me to, have the time that I really want with my kids. And the main reason I went to business, flexibility. That was
Mhm.
one thing that corporate never offered for me.
Wow. So, Nora, tell us how people can get a hold of you.
The best way to get a hold of me is you can check out upsidedownentrepreneurship.com. All of my information is there, all of the links to the website. You can listen to the podcast, which is what I call a short version of very honest business telling. I know we all love the positives, but I've had a lot of moments where I wish somebody would have been a little bit more truthful. It's kind of like parenthood. Everybody's like, yay, you're going to be so happy. And then there's a moment where you're like, is this okay? There's so many emotions with it. And I love expressing it. And I love to let people know being positive and having great energy, I think, is so important. And I like to let people know that you almost have to just keep moving forward. You have to laugh it off. And if you take things too seriously, you really are just going to end up dropping the ball or failing or being so hard on yourself. So upsidedownentrepreneurship.com or the podcast. You can check me out on Instagram, which is just nora.farhat. You can pretty much, or find one of the brands, British Swim School, Pool Scouts, Grand Illuminations, Mathnasium, all great brands. I'm happy to be able to bring those. You guys mentioned it a little bit earlier, so I think I have to touch on this. I realized that my real passion, what really drives me, is actually service. And I
Mhm.
do that even within my own family. Being the role model for my kids is what I value.
Mhm.
Or even within my business, I'm not building a business. I'm building a business that I'm proud to build. I'm building a business where I think I'm priced fairly. I'm building a business that I think I'm treating my staff the way they should be treated, that my customers get the experience that they deserve to be. So for me, something, and like I said, it's something that I had to kind of look back on, and I realized it. That's so important to me that actually all of my businesses are driven by that first. What level, what's that standard first? The money does follow. If you're building and
Does, yeah.
quality, it absolutely follows. But when you don't have your quality right, and you don't have those other, those principles down, you're setting yourself up a bit.
Wow.
How do you stay true to that and have your employees stay true? You do it through a cultural or a mission statement or certain best practices, because that's quite a commitment. That's quite a commitment that you have.
I think I love engagement. I think the way you motivate people is giving them a lot of trust and engagement and engaging the staff. So I think we've built a culture of engaging the staff to allow them to have access, but also we're very clear. Hey guys, this is what we're doing. You have every authority to make any decision if it's based on this is the value that I want somebody to come in here and have this type of experience. I also really believe in, we have to keep reminding ourselves. I think sometimes we can get lost in the shuffle of things. So for me, communication is a big part of it, but so is the fact that I'm building a staff that's engaged, that they understand what our visions are. And there's no such thing, the same way I say with my own life, I don't smack down bad decisions. You don't get in trouble in my companies for making a decision. You're first rewarded for making a decision. That's a big step. Now, if you made the wrong decision, I actually come back to myself and say, what did I not train them that made them think that that would be the right decision? So for me, it's that accountability shows up time and time again. And guess what? If I walk into a facility, you know how I show you what I want you to do? It's because I do it. I've done your job. I've done the job next to you. I pick up the trash. I clean the bathrooms. There's no job that I will not do. I have spent years in every job you can think of. I have washed dishes. I have cleaned toilets. I have done it all. There's no shame in work. And I bring that when I show up. When I'm showing up, I'm teaching you, but you're also watching me. So for me, that's an important part of that culture within the company. Is lead by example. What do we say? Kids they're behaving how you behave, not how you said they should.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same with staff, right? It's what am I showing up?
Yeah. Wow, ladies, we could talk forever. I do want to highlight that before, Tracy, you do a wrap up for us, is I'm thinking about this idea that you've done each role and you're willing to step into it, and therefore you lead by example. I can tell you, as not a good manager, I'm not particularly good at it. One of the criteria that I've learned for is somebody a good fit or not a good fit is, are they willing to do the same thing? If immediately say, well, that's not part of my job title, or I don't enjoy doing that, is there something else I could, then I realize they're really not probably a good fit for us. Especially as a small company.
Yeah.
So I think it goes both directions. We lead, but we also expect that they're willing to learn new things and do things that might be slightly out of their job description. So Nora, thank you. I had like at least 3 dramatic mic drops there.
Yes.
Only had one piece of paper. It's not even paper. It's a tissue I'm writing. So thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it. And Tracy, your final thoughts as we log out here, girl.
Yeah, there were so many great points that you made, Nora, really. I mean, even things that, I have me, thinking about myself and the way I handle, situations here and there. I think what struck me most today was that my initial thought on the first half of the interview was that it was your exposure to different environments and having a dad that's an entrepreneur and having this mindset. But then on the second half of the interview, no, that's not enough. You have to combine that with integrity, alignment, and accountability. And that's when, I even have the goosebumps right now. I feel like that's when the whole package really seals the deal. And that's where true, sustainable success is created. So thank you for being our guest today. This was a phenomenal learning experience, I'm sure, for myself as well as Rebecca and all of our viewers.
For sure, Tracy. All right. And for those of you listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, thank you. Share, of course, this interview, because there are some massive mic drop moments in this that Nora shared from her personal experience. And then we'll see you next week on another episode.